Discussing the modern state of the video game industry kinda sucks because, and it's not stopping. PlayStation is releasing more of this shit with fair games and even more unannounced live service inevitable disasters to come. While Helldivers 2 shows that they can pull this sort of thing off, Concord proves it may have just been a one-time breakthrough. It appears the industry continues to head in the dangerous direction of dumping hundreds of millions of dollars on games that they could never even hope to make a profit on. I've been keeping this relatively focused on PlayStation despite there being a few key examples I could definitely clown on, but that's because recently they released a far smaller budget 3D platformer in Astrobot. We've talked extensively about live service stuff already, but beyond that, PlayStation Studios doesn't really even make single-player games like this anymore. The first 3 PlayStations all had pretty substantial 3D platformer presence. Of course, the PS1 had the smash hit series Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. The PS2 saw franchises like Ratchet & Clank, Jak and Daxter, and others, and the PS3 had Little Big Planet and a pretty solid presence from the others from the PS2 era. Sony pivoted to making games with a key narrative focus, and since then, there's only been a few attempts at games like Astrobot, and well, they've been not the best. We did see a remake of the original Ratchet & Clank, which was great, but that was kinda it first party wise during the PS4 generation. PlayStation Studios instead focused on these huge graphical showcases with a huge focus on storytelling, and as much as I love them, these games are getting way too expensive to make consistent profit, especially when you're also dumping this much money on Walmart Overwatch 10 years too late, being charged $40 when the competition is free. Also, these days, we just don't see as many 3D platformer releases as we used to. Besides Nintendo, it's really only the indie devs making them, and even then, there's a bit of a lack of polish when compared to Nintendo, simply because they don't have to worry about budgetary constraints. This alone is enough to see that Astrobot is a miracle, as a slightly larger budget isn't a problem here, and as such, they're able to add so much charm and detail that previously was only thought to come out of Nintendo's 3D platformers. The PS5 generation has been relatively similar to that of the PS4's, with more narrative-driven expensive games being the focus of the company. 2021 did see the release of a new Ratchet & Clank, but even Rift Apart had a larger focus than usual for the series on cinematics and story. However, jumping back in time to the launch of the PS5, all console owners got a free game pre-installed on the system, Astro's Playroom. It's a bit of a tech demo, but a very fun time that saw many players, myself included, asking for a full game just like this. It was incredibly charming and super fun to collect all the artifacts from PlayStation's history. Fast forward to 2024, we saw the announcement and release of exactly that in Astrobot, and it was everything we hoped for and more. The game has stellar level design, consistently fun power-ups and gimmicks, well-hidden secrets, and simply a blast to play through. This game has been getting consistent high ratings for a reason, and it's great to see a game with such passion being critically acclaimed. Just like Playroom, it pays homage to the history of PlayStation, but this time focusing on the characters. For some of these characters, it's their first time being acknowledged by PlayStation in over a decade. This game serves as hope that we could not only see more games like this, but also possibly the continuation of some of these abandoned series. Unfortunately, Sony recently went on record stating they don't have enough legacy IP, which, come on, dude. They probably don't think these franchises would sell enough since it's been so long, but if you're already dumping hundreds of millions on your live service slop, what's a couple million over a smaller game like Sly Cooper or Jak and Daxter? Or Knack 2, come on, give the people what they want. In the recent State of Play, Sony stated right at the start that they could not be happier with the reception to Astrobot, and hopefully that means they're beginning to see they can make these smaller budget games that are just as critically acclaimed as a God of War Ragnarok or a Ghost of Tsushima. Ideally, we see the hundreds of millions of dollars that's being poured into the live service games and invest them into smaller budget games and their older IP. I feel like a new Sackboy or Little Big Plan is pretty likely since it's inherently pretty similar in DNA to Astrobot. But anything else currently is kinda just wishful thinking, but it's entirely possible a shift in Sony's philosophy for game development is beginning here and will continue to develop as the inevitable live service blunders continue to flop. The PlayStation 5 generation has been a rough one for Sony. They've had a pretty slow output, and the former CEO's live service plan is bleeding Sony dry monetarily and creatively. It seems we're going to have to keep putting up with it for a little while longer, but thanks to Astrobot, we can see that there is hope. Hope for budget-friendly first-party Sony games to coexist with their larger-scale single-player games. Hope for creatively charged and endlessly fun experiences. Hope to see the return of some of PlayStation's older IP that they haven't touched in so long, and hope for the PlayStation brand in general.